Thank you so much for joining us to talk about the rise of TikTok in music and its potential impact on the live touring industry. We'll give it a second for people to come in, but I'm Tatiana, a reporter for Billboard, where I cover TikTok maybe too often. And we also have with us some amazing speakers, Adam Burchell, the TikTok's head of music in Canada, Chris Anokute, artist manager at his company Young Forever, and Billy Mann, who's co-chairman and CEO of Proof of Concept Media. And we have so much to discuss here. And I guess maybe just to start, do you guys want to maybe each talk about what your role is and how TikTok relates to it? Obviously, that'll be different for Adam, but maybe just to give our listeners an idea of what you do.
Sir Billy, or you want it?
Yo, go for it, Chris.
Well, I mean, so I run an artist development company, Young Forever. And the reason why I say it's an artist development company is because I do anything necessary to properly develop the artist, whether it's managing the artist, whether it's being label services for the artist, helping with marketing, distribution, promotion, or even if it's just investing in artists or, you know, giving them independent A&R resources. And TikTok has really made it easier for me to be an independent entrepreneur, because I never believed in A&R research. I was always an A&R guy who would make the pizza and go in the studio and work with producers like Billy Mann and put songwriters in the room and try to make hits. And I used to always frown at, you can't find hits just searching the internet. And then here comes TikTok, which just revolutionized what I feel the A&R process is. And I've been finding a lot of incredible artists and songs on TikTok and using TikTok as an amazing marketing platform to set the tone for artist development. So I don't know if I could be an entrepreneur without TikTok today. We are.
I'll go next, but I feel like, Adam, the pressure's on you as the TikTok executive. The expectations. I mean, I've been in the business over 25 years as a songwriter and producer, and I'm an entrepreneur. And Chris and I met during several years that I was president of EAMI. But by and large, I'm a songwriter and a producer and an investor in talent and developing artists. Chris and I have been friends a long time, so we're kindred spirits and friends. So I think we approach it the same way, is that TikTok represents, in some ways, very powerful ways, and in some ways, very uncomfortable ways for the music industry, just how disruptive technology can be in not just sourcing talent, but how we experience content. And for Benton James, who's my partner, and we have a record company with Warner Music Group called Icons and Giants. And we do a lot of work with brands, large brands. We just won a Webby, actually, which is funny, as a music company. But all of it is distilled by this new way that everybody is experiencing music and talent and content. And I've just been very nerdy for a long time, and this soothes my inner nerd. And I also think that the music industry is probably, ironically, the most prepared for short form video content. We're just abbreviating the MTV era of what we were already doing. So I think it's disruptive. There's incredible talent to discover there, and also incredible talent that's not music as well. So it's just an exciting marketplace for everybody at the moment.
Yeah, those are such nice things that you guys said about this joint. I appreciate that. I feel very blessed to be on this panel with people I very much admire and have clearly just fantastic reputations in the music business. So yeah, as been mentioned, my name's Adam. I oversee music out of the Toronto office in Canada, but you know, we structure things as if from the lens of a North American music team, working closely with a lot of the other global heads, really to figure out how music evolves on TikTok and how we can bring more trust and value to artists and their teams. So prior to coming here, I've been here since October. I was at Live Nation and MLSE out of Toronto for roughly 10 years, doing all things live entertainment. So very much have a touring background, a live entertainment background. So I'm excited to have this conversation to talk about how our shop can help the touring side of the music business.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about artist development. We're going to talk about how all this is impacting touring. But I feel it's helpful to just start with talk a little bit about like discovering these in these songs. I feel like there's one thing we've learned over the past few years, it's that one viral doesn't necessarily make a career. So what are some things that you guys keep in mind in terms of like, how do you know that an artist or a song that broke on TikTok has what it takes for a longer career and eventually maybe even the touring circuit?
I mean, I'll dive in real quick and say that we don't know, because the explosion that's been happened during a pandemic. And I've been advising the D'Amelio family since way back in the olden days when Charlie had less than 20 million followers until now when she could probably run for prime minister of a country. And you just don't know, because we're just now trying to figure out what life is. And frankly, on a global basis with Brazil and India and lockdowns, and we're not out of the woods yet. So I don't think we're going to actually know what it means to go on tour in the club circuit, which is basically the 30-second swipe up club circuit that people are seeing artists perform in now, to what that looks like back in venues. And I don't think that we're going to know what is sustainable. I mean, like the Bella Porch single is exploding. It's nearly 70 million streams on Spotify alone. And that's clearly a runaway record digitally. But, you know, whether that has the legs to be a long-term career, we don't know. And I think that's the one thing that is the same as it used to be, is that an artist can come out and have a hit. And then the question is, can they sustain it? So I probably not the most fun answer to provide, but I think it's the reality is that we just don't know. And I don't think we'll know until we start to re-enter shaking people's hands and hugging our friends.
I second everything Billy said. We don't know, right? But we do know that commerce occurs from a TikTok explosion. And for most rights holders or rights owners, record companies who invest heavily in artists who are developing off TikTok, all they care about is the streams, right? So you could get a song to a couple 100 million streams and the record label makes millions of dollars. I mean, the manager has to then do the work, he or she, to build a story for that artist outside of that 15-second swipe. But the label made their money, so they kind of tend to move on. But I think what I look for, because I used to frown at artists who are driven by social media, because I always had this thing about artistic integrity and less is more. But as you get older in the music business, you get wiser and you realize that the kids run the world and the kids will dictate the trends to follow. And it's clear that 100 million users in America can't be wrong. There's that many people, I think, using TikTok, and it's driving the marketplace more than any other medium I've ever seen, even more than top 40 radio, which used to be the biggest driver of the consumer. I mean, you hear something and it immediately generates into streams and then dollars and cents. I do know that agents have been very bullish on trying to book and sign TikTok driven hits, because they're just looking to find an audience. So like Billy said, we don't know if the audience is there, but we do know there's a demand from the agents and the promoters to book these acts and you know, take a flyer on it. Because when you see an artist that has 10, 20, 100 million streams, it's an easier sell for a promoter to hopefully pack that venue than to sign a developing artist who may have under 100,000 streams. So I do think there's an appetite for these TikTok driven artists because the audience is there. Now, is the audience going to show up and spend their money at the venue? We don't know, but the audience is there. The numbers don't lie.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation that we're having over here, and you know, I have a hypothesis. I don't know that it's accurate because to Chris and Billy's point, we just don't know yet. But I think that, you know, when we talk to artists and their teams and the labels, you know, we always remind them there's two ways on TikTok to leverage yourself as an artist. You can work yourself as an artist, as a personality, and you can also just work the repertoire. And so, you know, what's very interesting and why I think TikTok has been so successful is because you've essentially taken, you know, millions of people and turned them into music supervisors. So people are discovering music in so many different ways now through so many different portals. You know, it could be literally like Nona making meatballs in the basement kitchen, and then bam, you hear a song and you love it, you're going to go stream it. It's not, you're not just hearing music through top 40 radio anymore, the way that Chris described it. I think what we're seeing is, for some artists who have, you know, hits that translate into streams and radio play and things like that, in certain instances, there's a disconnect between knowing the song and knowing the artist. And that to me is been interesting, and something I talked to a lot of artists about, to say, don't lose sight of the opportunity to put yourself and your face out there, because having a big song, we've all seen people have like massive radio hits, book into amphitheaters and sell a couple thousand tickets, and you go, well, how the hell did that happen? Like, you know, and it's because there's a difference between knowing the song and knowing the artist. So I think it's important, as we think about what will it translate into, I always talk to artists about making sure that you're investing in yourself as a personality and an artist to get your name and your face out there just as much as you work the song.
Totally. No, and that's something that I actually wanted to talk more about, is how do you patch up that disconnect between, you know, making sure that people that are discovering a song or an artist on TikTok are still going and discovering them off the platform and becoming fans, and then eventually maybe buying tickets to their show. Like, what are some ways that you guys have worked to kind of patch that up?
I mean, I would put something forward also, which is, it's really unfair to look at TikTok on its own as the sole informer for the marketplace, because that it's a setup for disaster. And really what I think people are doing, that agents are doing, and I think this is going to greatly impact the marketplace in terms of touring and publishing and record deals, is trying to be a lot more robust in unpacking the story behind the artist. Because you can have an artist or someone that's on TikTok that has a large view count, but the engagement is low. Or when you turn to another platform where they live, like Instagram, you find these anemic numbers, and it can be head scratching. And that's really, I think, what we look for in anything we're investing in, is making sure that there's a compounded muscularity to what an artist or a talent brings to the table. So it's not just they have a moment, but those moments are translating. And I think that looking at TikTok just on its own without the full ecosystem, it would be just as obtuse as looking at a radio record and not seeing if anything else translates. So I think we got to get accustomed to that. And also, like Live Nation released today, that there's this massive pent-up demand for shows, and this is real. Festivals, shows. We're in a tribal business. Music is a congregation-based business, and people are longing for it. So I think that the question might become, how does TikTok stay really in the front of the dialogue after the world opens up when it comes to in-person experiences? And that, not to flip that on you, Adam, brother, but I do look at it and say, that's something interesting that I think the industry, we have to look at, because we have been all put in our boxes for the past year and are still there, which means we're a captive audience. And I think that once we are all released into the wild again, I think the concert business is going to be explosive. And then TikTok, I think, will already TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, all of them are working on their marketplace offerings. And I think that's going to be a natural glide path to ticketing and other in live experiences.
Great point, Billy.
Yeah, I think Yeah, you're right. We do have to figure that out. We've got some thoughts on it for sure, which I'm excited about. But ultimately, we're here to provide two things. We say this internally all the time: provide two things to artists in the music community: trust and value. And personally, like, I don't see us as competitors to the DSPs, as an example, because we're a place where people discover and then go explore. And I'm hopeful, and I would imagine that that will continue in the live space. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit later on about, specifically what that might look like, how we support the live space. But I think it's, quite frankly, just like TikTok has helped artists find new audiences and drive streams and drive other types of engagement. This is just a natural place to tell that touring story, to tap into that pent up demand, because I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. You can watch sports through a screen, and that's not going to prohibit you from going down to the arena and, and screaming and buying the merch and all that sort of stuff. And I do think, and I mentioned this earlier, I've come from the touring business. I've always found it strange that the live music business, for the most part, has been inherently live, like in person, whereas the sports business is as much live as it is experienced through other means. And I think that that just presents tons of upside for everybody in the music space.
Yeah, I think with live opening up, I think it'll give creators more outlets to be creative via TikTok. TikTok is really just a platform to, shine a light on activities that the creators are doing on a daily basis. For me, when it comes to go to your question, Tatiana, for artists or creators who are developing and, creating content on TikTok, the one thing I look for, just to make sure there's more under the hood than just a song, is I tend to invest in songwriters first and foremost. There's a lot of creators on TikTok who are singing songs, right? Like, there's a lot of, not artists, creators who are, getting songs from producers and trying to use TikTok as a marketing shtick to break a single so they can make money and pretend they're an artist. I still tend to look for artists who have an identity, a point of view. They're able to write their own songs so they can write another one, because it's not just about one song. Nobody wants to just be in the hit business. We want to be in the career artist business. And I think it just takes time for artists to develop. I mean, there's been many scenarios of artists who had hits. Rihanna, Pon de Replay, you know what I'm saying? Pink's first record when she was with LaFace Records. I mean, the list goes on. Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, they were one-hit wonders before they followed up with another hit. So I just think it's about investing in great songwriters and then having great management who has patience that could kind of build a story over a longer period of time. But I think we can't be so hard on the talent, because things are happening very quickly. I haven't seen artists break this fast since radio was dominant in the 90s, where you could literally play Clive Davis and just take a singer from Newark, New Jersey, put a song on her, take it to radio, and Whitney Houston is born. Those days don't happen anymore. But now you could literally take an artist, and if they have a song that's reactive on the platform, that artist could literally go from zero, Curtis Waters, working at Tropical Smoothie, to 800 million streams in a year. And he became a millionaire in the process. And I don't even think he knows how he got there. So now we're in the artist development stage and kind of going back to the drawing board and making sure he's telling a story as an artist. I mean, every agent has tried to book him. I haven't introduced him to one agent. Every promoter from Live Nation to AEG Live has been trying to book him. He's been offered major festivals. We haven't accepted one festival. And it's not because we don't believe in him. It's because I know, as a record executive, former major label executive, and now manager, artist development specialist, I could be doing a disservice to my artist if I put him on the field before he's ready. Like, he's not trained. he may get injured and then his career's over. So I think it takes a patient manager, artist development coach to know your artists and know, like, yeah, we had a hit, but there's nothing under the hood yet. And we now need to really work on the mechanics of the car. So when we put you in the race, you could actually run to win. So I think it's just about patience and seeing it through. But the good thing is I tend to invest in songwriters. So they're gonna write another one. And every song doesn't have to be a hit, but every song needs to get you to the next step in your career so you can continue telling your story until you are a Drake and you're selling out stadiums and you have cachet as a career artist. But I just think it takes time. So I'm not so hard on my artists. I just know that sometimes people get lucky and sometimes getting a hit on TikTok is luck. It doesn't mean you're that good. It means something worked, it got viral, and we were able to capitalize off of it. But I think now, as we start to build relationships with TikTok, Adam and my other friends in the US office, they're educating us as managers and artists how to now build more substance underneath what was hype. And I think that's helpful because nobody really knows how to maneuver in this new ecosystem. So I think it's going to take Adam and his team to really hold hands with managers like myself and Billy to educate us on how we could better use their platform to create more substance and longevity for our creators.
Those are all such great points, Chris, especially in terms of like this idea of even holding back from the touring circuit because you need to like develop those skills and training for it. I think that the general public and maybe some of these artists that are on TikTok maybe don't realize like the type of training you need to perform and how like this is a skill that you need artist development for. So I think that that's all really interesting.
I made mistakes. I always say you win some, you lose most. I lost more than I've succeeded in the music business, but I've learned the most from the mistakes. And I had an artist a few years ago who had a big moment that I released independently, and he ended up in a huge bidding war. And, you know, I got excited. So I ended up signing him to Universal 3 years ago. And I knew he wasn't ready because everything happened so fast. He had a viral moment. And, you know, we put together a show in New York with the label president and the entire label. And after that show, he got dropped. And I knew he wasn't ready. I knew he wasn't ready to perform. I knew he wasn't ready for the big stage. He's never performed with a band. But I was so excited thinking that the song was all we needed. And it just reminded me again how important artist development is and patience. So you just have to take your time and know that, yeah, you may get a hit out of TikTok, or you may be able to use these platforms to move your song farther down the playing field, but you still have to do your diligence as an artist. It's like cryptocurrency. Just because you're up 10x in 2 weeks doesn't mean you just start getting greedy and keep on investing, because then when Bitcoin crashes like it did in the last 3 weeks, you may lose everything. So just take your time. It's a long game.
I want to interject one point, and far be it from me as actually a songwriter to make this point, but just because so much of this panel is about the live industry and the touring industry, I want to make sure that there's also a sobriety check. And the sobriety check isn't just in terms of, you know, part of the magic of you, Chris, is how much heart you have in the artists that you develop. And I like to really only get involved with artists that I'm in love with, that I want to die on that hill for. But as it relates to the touring marketplace, the reality is that a lot of the talent that's out there is literally just moments. And for the health of just pure entertainment, I have 4 kids. My youngest is 6, and my oldest is 18. And for my kids, like, they're okay with just a not super deep artist experience. They just want a pandemic to be over and them to go to a concert and buy a shirt and feel a part of something. And I think that what I would love to see, and we talked about this with the D'Amelios a little bit, and Dave Zedek, who's their agent on the Music Live side, and we've spoken about it. It's like, how do you put together what those festivals look like, or what is that grouping of talent? And this is going to be, it's not, I mean, the D'Amelios are a particularly unique story, but for a lot of these artists that congregate together, or they help each other's records go viral, I think the future of touring in the short term, as we come across this strange digital threshold that we've been in, is going to be a balance between the long-term developments, like what you're doing with Sam Waters, and the short-term fun of music and, you know, the Tiger Beat old school era of how kids just like a moment and they don't need more than that one hit. And I think that's also healthy for the touring business. And honestly, I have no doubt that both the big promoters and the small promoters are all looking at ways to create those kinds of events. And I think purely from a, just as an entrepreneur, I think that's a beautiful thing. And that was done in the past with YouTubers. And
remember that, right?
yeah, no, but and not all of them were successful, but I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And for anybody that's out there, whether you're an agent or a manager or whether you have a venue, you can do that. And this is part of the beauty of TikTok in the space, is you can do that locally. You can be in Toronto, Adam, and Adam could say, we're going to do a local TikTokers festival. And a lot of people will come out, no different than, you know, the TikToker that's coming up is an African guy in Italy who has nearly 70 million followers that nobody on this whole panel has probably ever heard of. And he's at a rate where he will be probably more popular than Charlie D'Amelio, and it's in Italy and we don't know anything about it. So I think the localization of that talent and how promoters and how we as a business harness that is, I think it's exciting, and also a vehicle for some of the bigger artists, the longer development stories, because they get the benefit of harnessing that firepower that comes with the aggregate of a community. And that's something that radio stopped doing, that local experience. And TikTok, my hope is, Adam, again, no pressure, but my hope is that, you know, Adam Burchell's in Canada doing it, and my friend Gove is in Australia doing it. And how do you create those micro festivals? I hope that happens. And if it doesn't happen facilitated by TikTok, I certainly feel like Chris Anacute could do it, or I could do it, but somebody's going to do it.
I was just going to say, we can partner up. I mean, Billy, that's an incredible point you just made, because you know what? It's not even just about artists, right? There's creators on TikTok, there's chefs, there's comedians, there's all types of creators who can go into a live act and command an audience and sell merchandise. And you're totally right. I mean, as a kid, I would love to see Charlie, Dixie, Addison, the chef, the guy who juggles, all in a variety show. And I'd pay $90 and go to Radio City Music Hall and see a one-off performance. And I'm
Who
like,
wouldn't do it? Adam he's already preparing the merch. Adam?
I'm on the other side of this debate, to be honest with you. I'll be honest. Like, I've got two thoughts on this. One, about the localization. I think the thing that I love about TikTok is that it's actually inherently not local. And so Curtis Waters can be Canadian and be an international superstar. That's so hard for a Canadian to do. You know, like, at the end of the day, like, America, I've lived in, you know, I've been America's hat for so long, right? Like, Canada just being this like little brother to little sister to America. I think what makes this place so special is that you actually aren't constrained to your hometown anymore. And in Canada, Canadian artists are seeing a ton of opportunity for that reason. And that really excites me. And it's, so there, I think that there's sort of an interesting thought around localization versus an almost borderless opportunity that's being presented to artists. And you mentioned Gove, and I love him to pieces. And you're seeing the same thing happen out of Australia, New Zealand. You know, like, one of the biggest songs on the platform last year was like a Tasmanian trap metal artist, right? Like, it's just like, in what world does this happen? And I love that, because it's like, Australia is pretty far away, right? So to have a more of an equal playing field, I think that is something that TikTok has helped dramatically with. The other thing I would say is just like, and, you know, I'm speaking for myself, but like, I don't know that I necessarily want people to be quote unquote TikTok artists. I want them to be respected artists and to go and sell out Radio Music City Hall on their own. And I think, somebody, and I forget which one of you guys said this, but like, I think it was you, Billy, like we got to look beyond TikTok. Like TikTok's a part of the pie, but it's not the whole pie. And I think if anything, like TikTok is not it's not its own thing. It's like, it's just another avenue for artists to be discovered. And, one of the analogies I use is it's like the music version of the movie trailer. We want people to go to the theater and buy a ticket to see the movie. It doesn't mean, to Chris's point, like not everything's a hit, right? It doesn't mean that every movie is going to be good. And, I would imagine, as people who work with artists, you want to invest in the movie franchises that have, 8 films and they print money. And, the reality is that not every movie made is a good movie, And so I think what excites me about this place is it's another platform for artists to get their name out, to encourage people to vote with their wallets. And, it'll be up to the public to decide whether they continue to buy tickets, whether they continue to buy records. But at the very least, it gives them an opportunity to put their stuff on sale, if you will. Chris, I thought you said something really interesting about, the radio business back in the 90s. I think one of the fun parts about this place is that you don't need to know the radio programmer here. You do, obviously, like you're friends with everybody here. But anybody has a shot to get that airplay. And I think that that's an inherently special thing about TikTok.
Agreed. No, it's definitely democratized the music business in terms of just releasing music and getting a shot. It's easier for artists to succeed because of, honestly, TikTok. Once upon a time, I would have told you that the DSPs were more open to artist development and helping newer artists find opportunities on playlists. And now the DSPs have just become controlled by the major labels. I mean, 90% of the artists that are on these DSP playlists are really major artists. I mean, they don't really give that many shots to people.
Well, I want to interject one thing. It's not that 90% of the artists are majors. It's that 98% or 98.6% of the revenue is from 1% of the artists.
And they're all big top tier artists, which is unfortunate because it's like one hand washes the other. But I do think TikTok made it easier for a kid from Calgary, Curtis Waters, to basically break out, like literally break out without any help from any institution, manager, gatekeeper. He was just able to dial in and a song reacted, and then we activated, and we just got some good people involved to take the story further. But as it relates to, the touring business is a very complicated business because most artists I'm seeing, this new generation of artists, Gen Z, they don't care to tour. Like, I've been talking to a lot of the kids and they don't really care. They're like, do I need to tour? Like, I'm making so much money online, not leaving my house, playing video games on Twitch, on Discord. Do I actually need to go on the road? Why can't I just continue doing live streams and making money and doing brand partnerships? So I do think there needs to be a re-education of the touring upside for artists to new creators.
But Chris, so, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that speaks to the point you made in the beginning, Chris, which is finding real artists in the traffic of everything that's there. Because, I'm a lifer and I was a touring musician, and that is something that I'm comfortable with. And you're right, a lot of these kids, like, why do they want to drive in a van for 14 hours to play a 30-minute set opening for somebody without a sound check? Is this generation, they're going to naturally have a different outlook than when this didn't exist for artists until this point. So I think that's where the rubber hits the road in terms of the difference between someone who's a TikTok artist and someone who's actually an artist. But I'll give you an example to prove Adam's point and yours in terms of the democratization of what it means to building something that can become a viable touring artist. Icons and Giants signed an artist called Black Bach, Blkbok. And Black Bach is a neoclassical pianist who was a keyboard player and the most sought after, played with Rihanna, Justin Timberlake, John Mayer, Demi Lovato, creating classical pieces. And during the pandemic, he created a beautiful album of classical piano, which, by the way, in my discography, that is not an obvious move. But we went on TikTok just to see how it would respond. And it's been 2 months and he has over 20,000 followers on nothing. Nobody spent any money, just the merits of the content and his creativity. And now he's opening the Juneteenth festival at Live Nation for Live Nation at Martin Luther King Memorial on Juneteenth in DC. And that all started with him creating proof of concept on TikTok. And those stories, I think, ultimately, as the world opens up, are going to cannibalize a lot of what we're talking about now, which is the come and go viral moments versus, and those real artists are going to separate. And I think the promoters and the venues and the agents, they're going to be incredibly good. I mean, they're already super savvy people, but incredibly good at being able to decipher that which is just a moment and that which is something to build on. And that's also our challenge as reps.
And I would say too that, you know, and again, I know that there's a lot of live professionals watching this, but promoters, agents, venues, I think that there's also an opportunity to think about the evolution of what live means. You know, there are a lot of reasons that you can't get down to the show. You can't afford it. It's sold out. It's far away from you. And, you know, Chris made a point earlier about the kids, you know, really dictating where we're going. I watched my 11-year-old niece exist in an almost purely digital world, like half her day. And so I think that, you know, I spend a lot of time with friends my age in this business talking about, oh, getting back to touring and, you know, nobody's going to want to watch, you know, a show on through a screen. And I'm like, well, we're saying that as 40-year-olds. I'm not sure that the same can be said for the 11-year-olds. And, you know, again, to Chris's point, we're trying to build a long-term business here. So, you know, we've got some thoughts on what that might look like moving forward. I don't think one cannibalizes the other by any means, because ultimately nothing will replace being, you know, together. I would suggest that there are likely new elements we can add to the live experience that would complement what currently exists, and perhaps companies like TikTok can play a role in that. And it just means more money for the artists in the music industry, and who doesn't love that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to remind everyone watching to send in questions if you have any, and we'll try to answer them. But one of them kind of related to that, Adam, which is an attendee asked, so far we're hearing a lot about how TikTok can help the artist. How can TikTok help the venue? How can the platform be utilized to move tickets and promote an event? And I don't know if you also want to talk about how TikTok might support live music in general and all the ways that you've kind of.
Yeah, I ran venue marketing for Scotiabank Arena in Toronto and previously Air Canada Centre. There was just announced a new venue in Toronto. Tatiana covered today that I got to work on before I left. So venue marketing is, like, I think, wildly important, and I think presents a massive opportunity. And I think I'll give a shout out to my old boss, Melissa Bug Clark in Toronto, who really saw the opportunity for venues to tell stories, to entice people to want to come to the show, no matter what the show was, because maybe you're in town and you just want to go to this iconic building. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, TikTok allows artists, venues, creators to tell stories. And I think the challenge that venues have had as marketing platforms, and I'll get to ticket sales in a second, but just as brands, they're inherently localized. Like, oh, well, why would, you know, the arena in Tulsa, Oklahoma matter to me? But we know that the marketers at these venues are doing a lot of really interesting stuff. Like the artist gifts that they create, there's a story behind that. You know, I think the tours are getting more and more interesting with some of the asks they put on the venues. Like I think Travis Scott was like, each venue, if they wanted an Astro World tour, had to make the venue become Astro World, and each venue had their own spin on what that was. And so my point is, I think that as a venue and as, these are often anchors in those markets, they have an inherent opportunity to tell stories that go far beyond the market itself. And I think that I would encourage all of the venue marketers on this call to really think about the way now that you can tell a story about yourself and not have to worry about, well, who of my Instagram followers are going to see this? TikTok, again, to hammer home this point of the democratization of content, if it's cool and you make an artist a really cool gift for coming to your venue and you put that out there, if that's interesting, it's going to go out to the masses. People are going to see it. And slowly over time, even as a venue, you're going to amass a following the way that Madison Square Garden has. It just becomes, this legacy place. So I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to do that. I think selling tickets is going to be a little bit more tricky, but there's still tremendous upside. And my advice really in that regard is to not just take an ad mat and localize it and call it a day. I think that live marketing has a long way to go. I've been very exposed to the record business marketing in my time here, and I would suggest it's very, very sophisticated. And I think that the live marketing business could do with a little bit of sophistication, just putting a name and a venue and a date on the ad map.
I by the way, I've been taking notes of what you've been saying, and like the biggest thing is the marketing refresh. I think that is going to happen across everything. We got advertisers have increased their spend in the digital space at the second half of 2020, 32% on these platforms. There's like massive, explosive investment in how to market events, brands of all kinds in this space. And I think, honestly, I think the touring business is ready. I think local venues are ready. Not just because they've been hurting and all the roadies are hurting and everybody is hurting, the artists are hurting, but I think that they're going to adapt fast. And I think it's actually going to be fun. I think meet and greets are going to become, you're going to get to TikTok with the artist, not take a still photo. I think all of these things are going to refresh and be monetized. But I think venues outfitting themselves for COVID is proof of how fast we adapt. I mean, the only thing that I think is a total mess is that the governments didn't go to the large venues and small venues and let them handle coordinating, getting vaccinations to people, because who knows better how to move large groups of people and give them, food, drinks, and put them in line than our industry. So I think we adapted a lot faster than we give ourselves credit. And I think it's going to be awesome. And I think the local venues and promoters are going to be thinking in a different way. And frankly, it's going to be more cost effective too, because it's a lot cheaper to do a lot of digital ideation with your team, even locally, to come up with initiatives that can get a life of their own, like the dude on the back of a truck drinking cranberry juice, than it is overpaying for a sponsorship that you're really not going to know how true those metrics are in the way that we know now because of TikTok and all the digital platforms and the ability to target.
Yeah, I would add to that. I would encourage artists and promoters to be a little bit more flexible with how they work with local markets on that exact point. Like, here's your approved photo, or your approved video, order your local market voiceover message. You call it, like, we got to do better than that. Like we got to do better than that. There's an opportunity for everybody to win in this. We're seeing that creativity is driving a lot of success. I would implore the live world to allow the local markets a little bit more creativity to market the shows.
Yeah, I wrote this point down as you were talking. It's like there's that famous photo of Bill Clinton, young Bill Clinton, shaking Kennedy's hand. It's like one of those photos that just people have. And what I keep thinking is, the NFT marketplace, which I think is very real, and I believe in blockchain and where it could go. But what prevents a venue from, they're going to create a meet and greet that has an NFT component where you meet the artist and there's like something happens, and not just to monetize it, but to memorialize it. And, online live, which Endeavor's just, Paul Kane is a friend of mine who's running that business. And that is going to be explosive growth, because the experience is, I think, what's going to start to really get the front row. We've had enough of this, like playing royal family with our phones. We like it, we don't like it, we like it, whether it's dating or music or talent. But I think people want those richer experiences, and that's another layer for touring and artists and the live business. I know it's going to be awesome.
Another good question from a viewer that's kind of related to this, and especially what you were saying about local markets, Adam, is how can venue managers understand whether an artist's TikTok fans are over-indexing in their local area, making them a potential good fit for their venue? So I don't know if that has to do with data or what, if that's possible, but do you have any insight into that?
I wish I had like a blanket do this and you'll get your answer response. I unfortunately don't. You know, artist data is, and rightfully so, you know, that goes to the artists, and it's up to them to share that as they're comfortable. So I think it's a great question, you know, when the venue bookers are, you know, thinking about whether or not they want to take a tour, talk to the promoter about that. I think it's a great question. Obviously, I think Spotify data has been really helpful with, you know, tour routing and helping people make decisions about what stops they make and they don't. I think that this is another data point that you should definitely ask about. And again, going back, I really like what Chris said about, you know, making sure you're looking under the hood and making sure there's a long story here. You know, if somebody's had a massive song, but they have 20,000 TikTok followers, I don't know that they're ready yet, because, you know, what that tells me is if people haven't voted with their follow, perhaps they're not ready to vote with their wallet either. So I would just encourage you to, you know, again, and I'm so proud to work at this company with the people that I work at, but just because something is big here doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate into every world. And so I would just, you know, ask the data, but data should inform decisions. It shouldn't dictate them. Right. So take any data point with a grain of salt, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And one other question, and then this may be the last audience question we have time for. I think we spoke to this a little, but someone is wondering, do you think TikTok artists will get a bad rep for not having put in the traditional type of work? Not that there isn't work, it's just a different kind, to make it to the top once they start touring.
In terms of a bad rap from who? The old gatekeepers who are about to be out of the business, or the next generation executives like Adam, Tatiana, and Billy? To me, I mean, the consumer market has always been a youth-driven market in the music business. And as a 38-year-old who is formerly one who would always frown at research-driven discovery, and I think you could call a lot of the management and the major label or indie label signings a lot of research-driven signings, because data doesn't lie. Once upon a time, the ego of the record business was so loud, where we actually thought we could play God and we could create magic from nowhere. And now the kids, like I said, 100 million users can be wrong. So whether my ears hear it or not, if the data is there and they're talking back to the artist saying, we like this, who am I to say it's not credible? And who am I to say that artist didn't put in work? I mean, I could say traditionally, a lot of artists in the 70s and 80s didn't put in work. They were literally rehearsing songs. Barry Gordy would give the same song to 3 different artists, whether it was Diana Ross and the Supremes or the Temptations. They would hire a radio promoter. They would go to radio. They would have a #1 record, and everybody gets rich. And then they don't get rich because they sold their publishing. So I think everybody just needs to allow people to evolve at their pace, and also do their own thing in the music business their way, because I think these kids are paying their dues. It takes a lot of effort and creativity to create a 15-second piece of content to hook me, to make me want to then go offline to another medium like Spotify or Apple Music to then stream you, to then find you on Instagram and follow you, and then hopefully one day go to your show. So I give these kids a lot of credit. And I was once a hater, but now I am all in.
I agree with that. I
don't want to interrupt you, but just so you know, I think you have maybe 30 seconds before this thing cuts off.
Okay. All I would say is new is scary, you know, if not uncomfortable. And this idea of, oh, it's just a kid in their bedroom, you know, making music with a computer. Yeah, but it used to be a bunch of kids in their garage making music with instruments. Like it's just an evolution. So this idea of somebody being a quote unquote TikTok artist, when MTV was new, it was like, oh, they're an MTV artist. There's no substance there. And I just feel like, nah, that's just a case of something new that maybe everybody doesn't understand. Doesn't mean that it's bad. So there's, to Chris's point, there's a lot of people, kids and 40-year-olds on TikTok working hard, working at their craft, and we shouldn't discount that effort that they put in.
But just real quick, for anybody that has questions, I don't know if I have the answers, but you can find me on Instagram or Twitter or something. Just I'll try to at least give you some input back, because I know we're out of time and there were some really good questions.
Sweet.
I think we may have, what, 5 to 10 minutes? I think it's 11, but we have to start winding down at 10:50.
I thought it ends at 1:50. But oh, it says 5. Okay. Well then, did I cut off anyone else from wanting to contribute to that question? Or do you want to?
I was just looking at some, they're just really good questions. You know, there was one that I thought that was a good question, sorry, for you, Adam, which is how can venue managers understand whether an artist on TikTok and their fans are over-indexing in a particular local area and making them like the right viable artist for that venue and their location?
Yeah, we touched on that. Just essentially, you know, basically ask the promoter if they have access to that data and working with the artist as they're trying to figure out routing. But again, take every data point with a grain of salt, because just because a song is massive doesn't mean that that translates into followers. And, you know, as we've said early on, I don't know that I would say the jury is still out on what TikTok success, specifically only TikTok success, will translate into the touring world. It's a great question to ask. You should definitely ask that as part of your overall analysis of whether or not you want to book a show in your market.
I may try and squeeze in one more that we have from an audience member. I think we have time for maybe one. And it's, what advice do you have for promoters to help provide venues with marketing materials for live events that are more than the standard format?
To you guys.
I don't have that one particularly, but I like the question.
The only thing I would say is to do what promoters and venues have done locally for a long time, but just to, how do you reimagine it on all these digital platforms? And they all have different personalities. So I think there's, I do believe that just like the meet and greet experience is going to evolve into doing a TikTok with an artist or a suite of experiences. I think it's going to be a trial and error. I hate to bring up politics, but the way that candidates ran for president in our country was they would put out 5 ads, different kinds of ads for a location, and then they'd see which one connected, and they'd get rid of the other 4 and just blast on the one that connected. So I think there's the cost of some of those campaigns are considerably lower, seeing as how you can create beautiful short form content with your phone. So I think it's about being more nimble, and also the artists providing a larger suite of tools, whether it's images or GIFs or other things that can be localized for venues on larger footprint tours.
I would just ask yourself, do I find this interesting? If the answer is no, then likely somebody else doesn't either.
Right. Well, I would, my only caveat to that is I would ask the audience you're targeting to ask themselves that question, because middle-aged guys like me, I know better than to use my own palate for a lot of those. I have amazing people on a team that help
Yeah,
me.
no, hey, fair enough. I just think like if you would scroll past it, what's going to stop somebody else from scrolling past it? I think that's, but you're right. But the point I'm trying to make is make it interesting. You know, an advertisement, typically not that attention grabby.
I think that on that note, we're actually out of time. No false alarm this time, but this was so great. I feel like I learned so much. Thank you guys so much for sharing your expertise with everyone. Really appreciate your time. And thanks everyone for watching.
Always. Billy.
Thank you.
Look to
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.